turning the city into a blur of silver and shadow. Lauren Cooper stood at the bottom of the cathedral steps, her black umbrella trembling slightly in her grip. She hadn't set foot in this city for 3 years, 2 months, and 16 days. Not since the fight that ended everything between her and Natalie. Yet here she was, staring up at the heavy oak doors of St. Augustine Cathedral, where her twin sister's funeral was already underway. The air smelled of wet pavement and lilies. Inside, a priest's voice echoed faintly through the stone walls, solemn and distant. She was late. Of course she was. A delayed flight from Prague, a cab driver who'd asked too many questions, and a heart that wasn't ready to face what waited beyond those doors. Lauren took a breath that hurt and started climbing. Mourners in dark coats flowed past her, faces she didn't recognize, voices murmuring condolences that didn't belong to her world. Natalie had always been the fire between them, impulsive, radiant, impossible to ignore. Lauren was the shadow, quiet, deliberate, the one who stayed behind to clean up messes. But no one could clean up death. She pushed open the cathedral door, the sound of rain muffled instantly by the vast silence within. Stained glass filtered gray light over marble floors. Rows of people sat in solemn stillness, a sea of black and polished shoes. The scent of incense clung to the air. At the front, draped in white lilies, stood the casket. Her sister's casket. Lauren's steps echoed as she walked down the aisle. She felt every gaze shift toward her, one by one, a ripple of disbelief spreading through the crowd like electricity. Murmurs rose. Gasps followed. Somewhere a woman whispered Natalie's name. Another clutched her chest. Of course, they thought she was the dead woman come back to life. The resemblance was too perfect. Same bone structure, same blue eyes rimmed red from travel and tears, same blonde hair tied too tight. Only Lauren knew the difference. Natalie had laughed easily. Lauren hadn't laughed in years. The priest faltered mid-sentence, eyes widening as he caught sight of her. The entire congregation seemed frozen between fear and wonder. Then a man in the front row stood up. He was tall, sharply built, his black suit cut with military precision. Even from across the cathedral, power radiated off him like heat. Dark hair, olive skin, eyes that burned beneath the vaulted ceiling. His expression shifted from grief to shock to something far more dangerous. Gabriel Donatelli, Natalie's fiancé, the man who ruled half the city from the shadows. For a heartbeat, Lauren thought he might faint. His hand reached out, trembling. "Natalie?" His voice broke on her sister's name, low and raw. How is this possible? The ache in his tone was almost unbearable. He took a step forward, another, hope bleeding into his face. Lauren's throat tightened. She stopped 3 feet away from him, her hands shaking despite her resolve. "I'm not Natalie," she said softly. "I'm her sister. Her twin." The words struck him like a physical blow. His hand froze midair. The hope in his eyes shattered, replaced by confusion, disbelief, and then fury. Cold, restrained, lethal. "Twin sister?" he repeated, his accent curling around the words. Lauren nodded once. "My name is Lauren Cooper." She never mentioned you. The pain behind his accusation cut deeper than it should have. We'd had a falling out. Around them, whispers swelled. The crowd, once reverent, now hummed with speculation. She had a twin? Does he know? They look identical. Lauren forced her spine straight, drawing on every ounce of composure her parents had taught her before they died. Observation, control, invisibility, skills drilled into her childhood. She scanned the cathedral quickly. 6 men in tailored suits stood along the walls, too alert to be simple mourners. Security, armed. They weren't watching the priest. They were watching exits, communicating in subtle gestures. Her stomach turned cold. This wasn't an ordinary funeral. Gabriel's gaze never left her. "We'll talk after the service," he said quietly, command replacing shock. 1 hour. My man will give you the address. "I came to say goodbye," Lauren whispered. He didn't respond, only turned back toward the casket, shoulders rigid, hands clasped behind his back. Lauren slid into a pew near the front, the sound of her heartbeat loud in her ears. People still stared, whispering her sister's name like an echo that wouldn't fade. The priest resumed speaking, his words blending into the low hum of speculation and fear. Lauren's eyes drifted to the casket. Natalie had died in a single vehicle accident on Lakeshore Drive. The words from the email had felt sterile then. But here, in this cathedral filled with bodyguards and secrets, it sounded like a lie. Natalie had always been careful. She didn't die by accident. As the organ began its mournful hymn, Lauren understood two things. Someone in this church had killed her sister, and by walking through those doors, she'd just stepped into the same danger that took Natalie's life. Rain still clung to Lauren's coat when she stepped out of the cathedral into the gray afternoon. Chicago smelled of wet asphalt and secrets. Cars lined the curb, black and gleaming under the drizzle. Men in suits murmured into earpieces while women dabbed at their eyes with silk handkerchiefs. The air was too heavy for grief alone. She had felt the danger the moment she'd walked in, and now outside, it pressed against her skin like static. A voice stopped her before she reached the street. "Miss Cooper." She turned. The man was older, silver hair, sharp eyes that missed nothing. His tone was polite but carried quiet authority. "I'm Franco Raldi. I handle security for Mr. Donatelli. He would like a word." Lauren hesitated. She had come to say goodbye, not to meet the man who ruled half of Chicago. "I need time alone." Franco's expression didn't change. "For your safety, I strongly suggest you come with me." She glanced down the street. A black sedan waited with the engine running. Every instinct screamed to walk away, but something in Franco's calm certainty told her it would be worse if she refused. She nodded once. "Lead the way." The car glided through the city in silence. The windshield wipers kept rhythm with Lauren's heartbeat. Franco sat beside her, unreadable. He drove without checking directions, as if every turn had been planned years in advance. "You knew my sister," she said finally. "I knew Miss Natalie very well. She was light." His pause was brief but heavy. "The house hasn't been the same since she died." When the car stopped, Lauren realized they were no longer in the city. The skyline had given way to lakefront trees and iron gates that opened automatically as they approached. The mansion that appeared beyond them looked like it had been carved out of stone and shadow. It was beautiful in the way dangerous things often were. Inside, the silence was thick. Marble floors, high ceilings, art that looked too real to touch, and photographs everywhere. Natalie's smile frozen in frames. Natalie on a beach. Natalie in a red dress laughing at the man now standing before the fireplace. Gabriel Donatelli. He didn't move when she entered, only lifted his gaze slowly from the glass of whiskey in his hand. Up close, he looked even more unreal. The kind of man whose presence filled a room without effort. The grief in his eyes had hardened into something colder. "You shouldn't have come here alone," he said. "I didn't exactly plan this," she replied. "You called me." Gabriel studied her as if she were a riddle that refused to solve itself. "Same face," he said softly. "Same eyes." His voice dropped lower. "But not the same woman." Lauren met his gaze without flinching. "I'm not her replacement. I came to understand why she died." Something flickered in his eyes. For a moment, she saw pain buried under control. Then it vanished. "Sit, Miss Cooper. I think you already know her death wasn't an accident." Lauren's pulse jumped. The words she had suspected but hadn't dared to speak now hung in the air. "What makes you so sure?" she asked. "Because I know who wanted her gone," Gabriel said. His voice carried quiet rage, and because she was killed to send me a message. He walked to a cabinet, pulled out a folder and tossed it onto the table. Photographs spilled out. A mangled car, skid marks on a straight road. Natalie's camera crushed under metal. "This is not how accidents look," he said. "Brakes cut cleanly. Professional work. The Albanians have been trying to push into Chicago for 2 years. They finally found my weakness." Lauren stared at the photos. Her sister's life reduced to wreckage. "If they killed her to hurt you, then why am I still breathing?" "Because they don't know who you are yet." His tone turned sharp. "Which is why you're staying here under my protection until I decide what to do." Protection felt like a cage. "I didn't come to hide behind armed men," she said quietly. "I came for answers." "Then help me find them," Gabriel replied. Franco entered suddenly. "Sir, you should see this." He handed Gabriel a phone. Gabriel's expression darkened as he read. He turned the screen toward Lauren. A photo taken less than an hour ago, her leaving the cathedral, her face captured in clear focus. Someone already knew she existed. Lauren's stomach dropped. That means they followed me from the airport. That means, Gabriel said, stepping closer, you just became the next message. The room felt smaller now. The rain outside had turned into a storm beating against the glass. Gabriel's voice was steady, but full of something that could ignite into violence. Until we find who's responsible, you don't go anywhere without me. Not the city. Not the gate. Nowhere. Lauren met his eyes. For the first time, she saw the truth beneath his control. This man wasn't just mourning. He was planning. And whether she liked it or not, she was now part of the plan. Night settled over the lake like a dark secret. The mansion glowed faintly against the storm outside, its lights reflecting off the water in long, trembling lines. Lauren sat in front of the window of her guest room, watching lightning crawl across the sky. Somewhere downstairs, she could hear low voices and the faint clinking of glass. Gabriel was still awake. She didn't need to see him to know. A man like that never really slept. The room was too quiet, too clean. Everything about it screamed control. Every book aligned, every surface polished. Yet beneath the perfection, she could feel something raw. Grief, regret, obsession. The walls were lined with photographs of Natalie. Some framed, some left casually on shelves as if he couldn't bear to put them away. Her smile filled the room like a ghost. Lauren touched one photo lightly, her reflection merging with her sister's face in the glass. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. She turned as Franco entered, carrying a small tray with tea. He placed it on the table with practiced precision. You should rest, he said. The storm will pass soon. She gave a humorless smile. Somehow I doubt that. Franco hesitated. You remind me of her, but not the way people think. Natalie was kind but reckless. You're calculating. Careful. That might be what keeps you alive. Before she could respond, a low rumble of thunder shook the windows. Then a flash outside caught her attention. Not lightning this time. Headlights. 2 of them, cutting through the rain, stopping just beyond the gate. Franco followed her gaze, his face tightening. Stay here, he said quickly and left the room. Lauren's heart quickened. She moved to the balcony door and pulled the curtain aside just enough to see. 3 figures emerged from the car, umbrellas masking their faces. The gate guards approached, weapons visible under their coats. There was a brief exchange, too far away to hear. Then one guard suddenly raised his gun. Muzzle flashes tore through the rain. The figures dropped instantly. More gunfire erupted near the gatehouse. The storm outside was no longer just thunder. Franco's voice echoed from the hall below. Lock all doors. Move the boss to the lower level now. Lauren backed away from the window, adrenaline surging through her veins. The attack had begun. The door burst open. Gabriel entered, his expression sharp, every trace of grief replaced by cold precision. They're testing the perimeter, he said. We need to move. He reached for her hand. His grip was firm, grounding. Lauren followed without argument. The hallway lights flickered as thunder roared overhead. She heard shouting from outside, men giving orders in rapid Italian. They reached a stairwell concealed behind a bookcase. Franco waited at the bottom, armed, blood trickling from a cut on his temple. There's at least a dozen of them, he said, Albanian accents. They came prepared. Gabriel's jaw clenched. Then they die on my property. Lauren wanted to protest, but the look in his eyes silenced her. Franco handed her a small pistol. Know how to use it? She checked the chamber automatically, movements smooth from years of training. Yes. Good. Aim to stop, not to warn. A deafening explosion rocked the house. The power cut out, plunging everything into darkness. Emergency lights flared red. Gabriel pulled Lauren close, shielding her as debris rained down from the ceiling. Smoke filled the air. Somewhere upstairs, glass shattered. Franco shouted over the noise. They breached the front door. We have to fall back to the panic room. Gabriel's arm stayed around Lauren's waist as they ran through the lower corridor. Every sound echoed. Gunfire, shouted orders, the pounding of boots. Lauren's pulse hammered in her ears. At one corner she saw movement, a shadow breaking from the smoke. Instinct took over. She raised her weapon and fired. The figure dropped instantly. Gabriel stopped long enough to glance at her. His expression unreadable. Then he nodded once. Keep that instinct. You'll need it. They reached a steel door embedded in the wall. Franco pressed his hand to a hidden panel and it slid open. Inside was a narrow room lined with monitors and weapons. The moment they stepped in, Franco sealed it behind them. On the screens, the mansion appeared in black and white chaos. Men in dark coats swarming the grounds, flashes of gunfire lighting up the rain. Gabriel watched silently, his expression carved from stone. "They want me alive," he said at last, "which means this is not a random hit. They know she's here." He looked at Lauren. "That's why they attacked tonight. She's leverage." Lauren met his gaze steadily. "Then use me. Bait them if you have to." The surprise that flickered across his face lasted only a second before turning into something else. "Admiration. You have your sister's courage," he said quietly. "No," Lauren replied. "I have her unfinished fight." Outside, the gunfire slowed. The security system's alarms began to fade into silence. Franco checked the monitors. "They're retreating. For now." Gabriel turned from the screen to Lauren. "They'll come again," he said. "But next time, we'll be ready." Lightning flashed once more, flooding the room with white light. For a heartbeat, Gabriel's face softened, the weight of loss returning beneath the mask of power. Then it was gone, replaced by resolve. Lauren realized in that moment she wasn't a guest anymore. She was part of the war that had killed her sister. And as thunder rolled across the lake, she knew she wasn't leaving until she found out who had started it. Morning came gray and heavy over the lake. Smoke still lingered above the mansion, drifting from the broken sections of roof where bullets had torn through the night before. Lauren hadn't slept. She sat on the balcony wrapped in a blanket, the taste of metal and fear still clinging to her mouth. Below, men moved across the lawn clearing wreckage, collecting shell casings, washing away blood as if violence could be erased with soap and order. Gabriel had disappeared hours ago to inspect damage and question survivors. Franco brought her coffee that had long gone cold. He said little. The silence of men who had seen too much death. When Gabriel finally returned, the sunlight caught the bruise forming along his jaw. He had changed into a dark sweater and slacks, but the way he moved told her he hadn't rested either. The grief from before was gone now. What replaced it was worse. Focus. Precision. He joined her on the balcony, his presence shifting the air. "You shouldn't be out here," he said. "The glass doors are a risk. I've already been shot at once. The view doesn't scare me." "You're remarkably calm for someone who killed a man last night." She looked at him, voice steady. "I learned a long time ago that calm keeps you alive." He studied her for a moment, then nodded slightly as if filing the information away. "I need to show you something," he said. "Come with me." They walked through the mansion's lower level until they reached a room Lauren hadn't seen before. A study built like a fortress, walls lined with books and old maps. On the desk lay a black leather journal, worn at the edges. Gabriel lifted it carefully. "Natalie kept this hidden," he said. "We found it in her studio. You might understand it better than I do." Lauren opened the journal. The handwriting was Natalie's, elegant loops, rushed thoughts scribbled in margins. But what filled the pages made her chest tighten. Dates, locations, plates, notes about men following her. Names in Italian and Albanian. She was investigating something. Gabriel nodded grimly. "The Albanians. She thought someone inside my circle was feeding them information. Silvio's name appears here 3 times, Lauren said quietly. "Does that mean something to you?" "Everything. Silvio Moretti has been with me 15 years. My counselor, my friend. He ran finances, oversaw logistics. If Natalie suspected him, she must have seen something." Lauren flipped to the last entry. The writing was messy, hurried. "Met Silvio at Martelli's. He lied about meeting schedule. Spoke to stranger. Eastern accent. Looked scared." A note below read, "Tell Gabriel soon." Then the page ended. Gabriel's hand tightened on the edge of the desk until his knuckles went white. If she'd told me that night, she might still be alive. "You can't blame yourself," Lauren said softly. "I should blame someone," he replied. His eyes met hers. "And I intend to." A knock broke the tension. Franco stepped inside, his voice low. "Boss, there's movement downtown." Silvio's people closed his office. His phone's off. He's gone dark. Gabriel's expression turned lethal. "Find him." He turned back to Lauren. "And you stay close to me. Whoever killed your sister isn't finished." Later that afternoon, Lauren wandered into Natalie's old photography studio connected to the mansion. The air smelled faintly of paint and chemicals. Cameras lay scattered across a work table. Photographs pinned to the walls captured faces in motion: streets, children, strangers. In the corner stood a portrait of Gabriel, unguarded and rare. She touched the frame gently. The tenderness in Natalie's work made her chest ache. Footsteps sounded behind her. "You shouldn't be here alone," Gabriel said. "I wanted to understand her world. Maybe see what she saw." His voice softened. "She loved this room. Said the light was honest here." Lauren turned to face him. "Tell me the truth. Did you love her?" His jaw flexed. "More than my own life." "Then why didn't you protect her?" The words slipped out before she could stop them. Gabriel froze, then stepped closer until the air between them thinned. "Because she wanted to be free. Because she didn't trust my world. Because I thought loving her was enough." Lauren's pulse quickened. "You can't fix that now, but you can find who betrayed her. You can end it." He looked at her, something dark and searching in his eyes. "And what about you? Why are you still here? You could have left the moment the shooting stopped." She met his gaze evenly. "Because I can't bury my sister and pretend it's over. I need the truth, even if it kills me." A faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Then we understand each other," he said. Franco appeared in the doorway again, tension written across his face. "We found him," he said. "Silvio called from a secure number. He wants to meet. He says he can explain everything." Gabriel's eyes turned to ice. "Set it up, neutral ground. Full security." As Franco left, Lauren saw the shadow cross Gabriel's face again. Not fear this time. Anticipation. The kind that comes before blood is spilled. When he finally looked at her, his voice was quiet but dangerous. "You wanted answers, Miss Cooper. Tomorrow you'll have them." Outside, thunder rolled across the lake again, low and distant. Lauren didn't move. She already knew the storm wasn't over. It was just changing shape, waiting for them both. Night returned to Chicago like a bruise spreading across the sky. The city glittered at the edges, unaware of the war quietly brewing in its heart. Lauren stood by the window of Gabriel's car as they drove through the streets, lights reflecting in the glass like fragments of another life. The meeting with Silvio was set for midnight. An abandoned warehouse by the docks, the kind of place where secrets were buried, along with the bodies that kept them. Franco drove, his eyes fixed on the road ahead, one hand resting near his weapon. Gabriel sat beside her, silent, his presence filling the space between them like gravity. He hadn't spoken since they left the mansion. The only sound was the low hum of the engine and the rhythm of rain against the roof. Lauren's pulse beat slow but steady. The air inside the car smelled of leather and tension. Her sister's journal sat in her lap, open to the final entry. The ink looked almost fresh in the dim light. "Met Silvio," Eastern accent. "Tell Gabriel soon." The handwriting slanted at the end, as if she'd been interrupted. "You're thinking too loudly," Gabriel said suddenly without looking at her. She closed the journal and met his gaze. "I'm thinking about why she trusted the wrong person." His jaw tightened. She trusted everyone. That was her weakness. "And yours?" Lauren asked. His eyes flicked to hers, dark and unreadable. "Trust is something I buy now. It's safer that way." The car slowed as they turned into the dockyard. Fog rolled in from the water, thick and pale under the floodlights. Franco parked near a cluster of shipping containers. The warehouse loomed ahead. Half its roof collapsed, windows broken. Shadows moved inside. Gabriel stepped out first. His men followed, spreading out, weapons drawn but hidden beneath coats. Lauren climbed out last, the air biting cold against her skin. Franco pressed a small gun into her hand. "Just in case," he said. "Try not to use it." Inside the warehouse, the air smelled of rust and oil. The echo of footsteps filled the space as Gabriel walked to the center where a single light hung from the ceiling. Silvio stood beneath it. He looked older than Gabriel remembered, his silver hair damp, his eyes hollow. Gabriel stopped a few feet away. "You called me. Talk." Silvio's voice trembled slightly. "I didn't want this to happen. Natalie wasn't supposed to die. I warned them to leave her out of it." Gabriel's expression didn't change. "Them. Be specific. The Albanians. They wanted leverage. You. I gave them information, but nothing about her." They found out who she was on their own. Lauren's hands tightened around the gun. You helped them, she said quietly. You might as well have killed her yourself. Silvio's eyes flicked to her, widening. You must be the sister. Natalie mentioned you once. She said you'd never forgive her. She was right. Gabriel took a step forward. Why call me now? Because the Albanians are planning something bigger, Silvio said. Victor Castrati isn't done. He wants to finish what he started. He's moving shipments through the South Pier, under your name. They'll hit your accounts, your fronts. You'll lose everything within a week. Gabriel's voice was cold. You think I care about money? No, Silvio said. I think you care about control and revenge. The air shifted. Lauren noticed it first. The faint scrape of metal near the entrance. Shadows where there shouldn't be any. She opened her mouth to warn them, but the gunfire came first. The sound tore through the warehouse, echoing off the walls. Gabriel grabbed her and pulled her down behind a stack of crates. His men fired back. Sparks lit the air. Silvio dove for cover, shouting over the chaos. It's Victor's men. They followed me. A bullet caught him mid-sentence. He hit the ground hard, his words dying with him. Gabriel's voice cut through the noise. Move. Franco covered them as they ran toward a side exit. The smell of gunpowder burned Lauren's throat. She fired once at a shadow moving too close, and watched it drop. They burst into the cold night, the roar of the lake muffled by distance. Gabriel's car waited where they left it, engine still running. Get in, he ordered. Franco slid behind the wheel and hit the gas as soon as the doors slammed shut. Bullets struck the back window, spiderwebbing the glass. Gabriel turned in his seat, gun still in hand, watching the warehouse disappear in the mirror. Silvio's dead, Lauren said between breaths. Then we're out of time, Gabriel replied. Without him, we've lost our only lead to Victor. Franco's voice was grim. Boss, if they knew where to find us, they know where you live. Gabriel met Lauren's eyes. The mansion's compromised. We move tonight. Lauren's pulse quickened. To where? Somewhere they can't find us, he said. And until they do, you don't leave my side. The car raced through the empty streets, sirens distant, the city still sleeping under its storm. Lauren looked out the window at the blur of lights and felt the strange calm that always came after chaos. Her sister's killer was still out there, closer than ever. And now, whether she liked it or not, she was bound to the man her sister had loved. The man who could either save her or destroy her completely. The storm over the lake hadn't stopped since the night of the ambush. Wind howled across the trees like something alive, carrying the echo of gunfire that refused to fade. The mansion stood in darkness, its power lines cut, its windows boarded. Gabriel's men patrolled the perimeter, flashlights slicing through the mist. Inside, Lauren sat at the long dining table, staring at a single candle burning between them. The wax dripped slowly, marking seconds that stretched into hours. Franco had gone to check the security feeds in the basement, leaving her alone with Gabriel. His shirt was half unbuttoned, bruises visible on his chest from the warehouse fight. He looked human for the first time since she met him, not a legend whispered about in alleyways, but a man haunted by ghosts. You haven't said a word since we got back, Lauren murmured. Gabriel looked up, shadows moving across his face. There's nothing left to say until I know who gave us up. Silvio's dead, she reminded him. Then someone else took his place, he said quietly. Someone close. Lauren leaned forward. You still think it's an inside job? Gabriel's eyes hardened. The Albanians knew exactly where we'd meet. That doesn't happen without help. He pushed a folder toward her. Inside were surveillance photos, phone records, and a map of Chicago covered in red marks. These are my lieutenants. All loyal, all dangerous. And one of them sold us out. She scanned the photos. You keep files on your own people. I keep files on everyone, he replied. Trust is a weapon, and like any weapon, it needs to be sharp. Before she could answer, Franco appeared in the doorway, breathing hard. We've got movement on the east cameras. 2 vehicles stopped by the trees. Not ours. Gabriel stood instantly. Positions. Franco nodded and vanished. Gabriel turned to Lauren. Stay here. Lock the door. She caught his arm. What if they breach again? He hesitated, then handed her a small earpiece. If you hear my voice, do exactly what I say. Don't try to be a hero. I'm not planning to die tonight, she said. His gaze softened just a fraction. Neither am I. He disappeared into the hall, gun drawn. Lauren locked the door and turned off the light. The candle's flame wavered, throwing trembling shadows across the walls. Through the earpiece came muffled voices, movement, then Gabriel's command. 2 intruders, not Albanian. Americans. Check the perimeter. Minutes passed like hours. Lauren moved to the window and saw headlights flicker near the gate. A white van, unmarked. The side door slid open and figures stepped out. She strained to see their faces, but the rain blurred everything. Then one of them lifted a phone, shining its screen toward the house as if signaling someone inside. Her stomach turned cold. They weren't attacking. They were coordinating. Someone on the inside was giving directions. The earpiece crackled again. Gabriel's voice came low. They're not firing. They're waiting for something. Stay down, Lauren. She dropped to the floor just as the explosion ripped through the east wall. The force threw her backward. The air sucked out of her lungs. Dust filled the room. She coughed, crawling toward the overturned table. Through the smoke, she saw figures moving through the breach, masked, silent, efficient. A shot cracked from the hallway. Another followed. Someone screamed. Gabriel's voice came through the earpiece again. Lauren, get to the stairwell. Now. She moved fast, heart pounding, feet slipping on debris. 2 of the intruders appeared in the doorway, weapons raised. She ducked behind a fallen beam, fired twice, and one went down. The other charged. She swung the empty gun, hitting him across the face. He fell back with a grunt. She didn't stop to see if he was still breathing. Gabriel met her halfway down the hall, blood streaking his arm, but his eyes steady. You're bleeding, she said. It's nothing, he replied. We have to move. They reached the hidden stairwell and descended into the underground passage that led to the boathouse by the lake. The air smelled of damp stone. Franco waited there with 2 guards and a duffel bag. We're compromised, he said. Whoever they were, they knew every camera blind spot. Gabriel's jaw tightened. Then it's confirmed. There's a traitor. Franco handed him a small black envelope. We found this in your office. It was taped under the desk. Gabriel tore it open. Inside was a flash drive and a note written in neat handwriting. You don't know who you can trust. Lauren's voice was barely a whisper. That's Natalie's handwriting. For a moment, time stopped. The storm outside faded, the candlelight flickering in memory. Gabriel stared at the note as if trying to resurrect her through the ink. Why would she leave this for me? Maybe she knew this day would come, Lauren said. Maybe she knew one of your people would betray you. Gabriel slid the flash drive into his pocket. We find out what's on it, he said. And then, whoever this traitor is, they die. Lightning flashed through the tunnel entrance, lighting his face in stark white. He looked at Lauren. You said you wanted the truth. This is where it begins. The wind howled again outside, carrying the sound of waves against the dock. The night wasn't over, and neither was the war. Somewhere between the dead woman's secrets and the living man's revenge, Lauren realized she was no longer an outsider. She was the only person left standing between Gabriel Donatelli and the darkness trying to swallow them both. The night after the explosion felt like an open wound that refused to close. The mansion had been evacuated, replaced by silence and cold air. Gabriel's people worked in shadows, moving crates and equipment into black vans waiting near the boathouse. The smell of smoke still clung to everything. Lauren stood on the dock watching waves crash against the pylons while lightning flashed far out on the lake. Her reflection rippled with every strike. 2 faces merging and breaking apart. The living sister and the one buried under lilies. Gabriel emerged from the house carrying a laptop and the black flash drive Natalie had left behind. He looked worn but unbroken, a storm contained behind his eyes. We'll find out what she wanted us to see, he said. Franco followed close behind, scanning the trees like danger could grow there. Lauren joined them inside the boathouse, where a single table and generator light cut through the dark. Gabriel inserted the drive. The screen flickered, then a video appeared. Natalie's face filled the frame, recorded weeks before her death. She sat in the same room Lauren had slept in days ago. Her eyes looked tired but determined. If you're watching this, it means I failed. Someone close to Gabriel has been working with Victor Castrati. His name is Elias Marino. He's been feeding them routes, schedules, account transfers. Gabriel trusts him completely. The video cut out, leaving silence so thick it felt physical. Franco swore softly. Elias, he said. He's been here since the beginning. Gabriel's expression turned to iron. Find him. No warnings. No mercy. Lauren watched him pace, fury barely restrained. If Natalie found this before she died, Elias might have known. He might have been the one who sabotaged her car. Gabriel stopped, looking at her sharply. You think he killed her? I think he made sure someone did. Franco's phone buzzed. He answered, listened, then looked up. Elias just crossed into Indiana. He's running. Gabriel grabbed his coat. Then we chase. The drive took 2 hours. Rain fell in thick sheets, turning the highway into a blur of headlights. Franco led the convoy, Gabriel beside Lauren in the back seat. He was silent, focused, his hand resting on the gun at his thigh. She could feel the tension radiating off him, but also something deeper, fear. Not of dying, but of what he might do when he caught Elias. They found the safe house at the edge of a dying town. A rusted factory turned hideout, its windows glowing faintly from a generator inside. Gabriel's men surrounded it quietly. Franco gave a hand signal. Move. They entered like ghosts. No shouting, no hesitation. Inside, Elias sat at a desk, phone in one hand, cash spread across the table. When he looked up, it was already over. Gabriel's gun pressed to his forehead before he could stand.
You were her friend, Gabriel said, voice calm but shaking.
You ate at my table. You met my fiancée. You watched her die for your secrets. Why? Elias's hands trembled. Victor wanted access to the ports. I thought if I cooperated, he'd let us all live. He promised it was just business. She got in the way. The words detonated in the air. Lauren stepped forward. You're saying my sister died because you wanted to stay alive. Elias couldn't look at her. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. Gabriel cocked the gun. He's lying, Lauren said. He's stalling. Gabriel's eyes flicked to her. You want me to kill him. I want you to make him talk first. Franco moved behind Elias, pulling a small knife from his belt. His voice stayed calm. We can do this the quick way or the hard way. Elias broke before the blade touched skin. Victor's shipping manifests, offshore accounts, a meeting planned in 48 hours, names of officials paid to look away. He spilled everything in a rush, his voice cracking under the weight of guilt and fear. When it was done, Gabriel lowered the gun but didn't holster it. You could have warned her, he said. You could have saved her. Elias's face was pale. I know, please, Gabriel. You're not like them. Gabriel's hand steadied. That's where you're wrong. The shot echoed off the concrete walls. Elias collapsed instantly. Franco exhaled. Gabriel turned to Lauren. She stared at the body, the smell of gunpowder filling her lungs. You said you wanted justice, he said. That's what justice looks like in my world. Lauren's voice was quiet but firm. Then your world needs to end. Gabriel looked at her for a long moment, something breaking behind his eyes. Then he nodded once. It will. Starting with Victor. Outside, the rain began to ease. The convoy left the factory behind, headlights vanishing into the fog. In the back seat, Lauren closed her eyes and let the rhythm of the road steady her heart. Natalie's killer was still alive, and the man beside her was no longer just a grieving lover. He was a weapon sharpened by loss, and soon he would be unleashed. The night before the strike felt too quiet, like the city itself was holding its breath. The storm had passed, leaving a heavy stillness over the lake. Gabriel stood on the balcony of the safe house, staring at the skyline where lights shimmered against the dark water. Below, his men prepared weapons and checked vehicles, their movements sharp and disciplined. Tomorrow they would take down Victor Castrati, the man who had ordered Natalie's death, and end the war that had haunted Chicago for years. Lauren watched him from the doorway. He hadn't spoken since they left Indiana. Killing Elias had changed something in him. The rage that used to burn hot had turned cold. Focused. Dangerous. She stepped forward. You haven't eaten, she said softly. He didn't answer. Instead, he asked, do you believe in redemption? She hesitated. I believe in choices. Redemption comes after you stop running from what you've done. He turned, his expression unreadable. Then I guess tomorrow will tell if I still have any left. They spent the night planning. Franco spread out blueprints of Victor's penthouse across a wooden table. Top 3 floors of the Aurora Tower, he explained. Private elevator, 24 guards. Lauren traced a finger along the emergency stairwell. This is your entry point, she said. He'll expect you from the front. Gabriel looked at her. You sound like someone who's done this before. She met his gaze. I grew up with parents who taught me survival, not normal life. This is just survival on a bigger scale. By dawn, the city was waking. The air smelled like rain and gasoline. Lauren sat in the back of a black SUV, checking the communication gear Franco had given her. Gabriel joined her, wearing tactical gear that made him look every bit the man people feared and followed. He fastened her vest himself, his hands lingering for a heartbeat too long. You don't have to do this, he said. She met his eyes. I do. For her. For me. For both of us. The operation began at sunset. Gabriel's team moved like shadows through the service tunnels beneath the building, while Lauren monitored the feeds from the command van. Her voice guided them through the earpiece. Security disabled. West corridor clear. They reached the top floor without alerting anyone. Then static filled the line. Franco's voice came through. Something's wrong. Power surge in the building. Backup generators just kicked in. On the camera feed, Lauren saw it before anyone else. Victor's guards had been waiting. A trap. She grabbed the radio. Gabriel, it's an ambush. Get out. His voice came back low and steady. Too late for that. The feed flared white as explosions shook the penthouse. Lauren ripped off her headset and bolted for the door. Franco caught her arm. You can't go in there. You'll blow the extraction. If I stay here, they'll die. She broke free and ran. The elevator was disabled, so she took the stairs 2 at a time. Gunfire echoed through the building. The smell of smoke grew stronger. When she burst through the penthouse door, chaos greeted her. Bodies on the floor, flames licking the walls. Gabriel stood near the balcony, exchanging fire with Victor's men. He turned when he saw her, shock and anger flashing across his face. Lauren, what are you doing here? Saving you. She ducked behind an overturned table as bullets shattered glass above her. One of the attackers advanced. She fired first. The man dropped. Gabriel moved beside her, covering her flank. You disobeyed orders, he said. I never worked for you, she replied. A door slammed open at the far end of the room. Victor Castrati stepped out, flanked by 2 guards. He looked older than his reputation, thin and composed, with the arrogance of someone who believed he couldn't die. Gabriel lowered his weapon slightly, his voice carrying through the smoke. You killed the wrong woman, Victor. The Albanian smiled faintly. They said she was your weakness. I see now they were right. You brought another version of her to die for you. Lauren's pulse hammered. She raised her gun, but Victor's guard fired first. Gabriel pushed her down, taking the hit across his shoulder. He barely flinched. Then he returned fire, killing both guards with precise, controlled shots. He stalked toward Victor, eyes burning with everything he'd lost. The old man stumbled backward until his heel caught the edge of the balcony. Gabriel stopped inches away, gun aimed at his chest. This is for Natalie, he said. Victor laughed weakly. You think killing me changes anything? Men like us never leave clean. You're right, Gabriel said quietly, but I'm not leaving this world for you to poison anymore. The shot was deafening. Victor collapsed, his blood dark against the marble floor. For a long moment, no one moved. The fire crackled, sirens wailed below, and Gabriel stood breathing hard, his weapon lowered. Lauren rose slowly, her eyes on him. It's over, she whispered. He turned to her, exhaustion replacing fury. No, he said. It's never over, not until we decide what comes next. They escaped through the service stairs as police sirens closed in. Outside, dawn was breaking again. The city looked peaceful, untouched by the violence that had just rewritten its underworld. On the drive back, Lauren rested her head against the window. Gabriel's blood stained her sleeve where she'd helped him stop the bleeding. Franco drove in silence. Gabriel finally spoke. You could have died tonight. You risked everything. She looked at him, her voice calm. So did you, but we're still here. And that means we have to decide what to do with the life we just stole back. Gabriel looked at her for a long time. Then he said quietly, maybe it's time we build something that isn't made of vengeance. Outside, the sun rose over the lake, turning the water gold. For the first time in years, the world looked like it might forgive them. The sun rose over the lake, spilling pale light over a city that didn't yet know the war was over. Victor Castrati was dead, but peace had not arrived. It rarely did after blood. Lauren stood on the balcony of a safe apartment on the city's north side, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee gone cold. Every sound outside made her tense. A car door, a siren, the echo of boots on pavement. She didn't trust the quiet. In this world, quiet often meant something worse was coming. Inside, Gabriel sat at the table, his arm in a sling, a bandage running across his shoulder where the bullet had grazed him. He looked exhausted but alert, his eyes fixed on the laptop in front of him. Franco had set up a secure connection to wipe Victor's remaining accounts and transfer the evidence Natalie had gathered to a federal contact. "Everything's here," Franco said. "Shipping routes, financials, political bribes. If this leaks, half the city will burn." Gabriel's voice was flat. "Then let it burn." Lauren turned. "You're not handing it to the FBI, are you?" He shook his head. "Not yet. I'm making sure the right people pay first." Her jaw tightened. "How many more have to die before you're satisfied?" Gabriel looked up at her then, his eyes darker than the bruises that marked his face. "This isn't revenge anymore. It's cleansing." Before she could reply, Franco's phone buzzed. He answered, listening, then swore under his breath. "Someone just hit the South Warehouse. Our men are dead. The files were mirrored there." Lauren's pulse jumped. "You mean someone else knows about Victor's operation?" Franco nodded grimly. "And they're cleaning house." Gabriel stood, ignoring the pain in his shoulder. "Who?" Franco hesitated. "There's a name on the camera feed. One of ours. Miguel Vargas." Gabriel froze. The air seemed to shift around him. He was one of Victor's contacts, Lauren remembered. The one who handled ports after Silvio. Franco's tone turned heavy. "He must have switched sides before the hit. He's trying to rebuild what Victor started." Gabriel's jaw clenched. "Then we finish this tonight." Lauren stepped between them. "No more blood. If we keep killing ghosts, we'll never escape them. Let the police handle it." Gabriel's voice softened, but the steel never left. "The police don't handle people like Miguel. He owns them. He'll be gone by morning if I wait." Franco loaded his weapon silently. "Orders." Gabriel nodded once. "Find his location. We go now." Lauren followed them outside, the wind biting against her face. She wasn't going to be left behind again. When Gabriel saw her at the car, he didn't argue this time. "Fine," he said. "But you stay behind me. Always." They drove through the industrial district as night fell again. The air smelled of smoke and oil. The address led them to a shipyard near the edge of the lake. Cargo containers lined the pier like tombstones. Franco parked the car behind a stack of crates. "Heat signatures ahead," he whispered. 3 men. "Maybe more," Lauren adjusted the earpiece. "I'll take the side route." Gabriel caught her wrist. "No, you stay with me." She met his gaze. "You need eyes from another angle. Trust me." He hesitated, then released her hand. "Be careful." She slipped through the shadows, heart steady, every step silent against the damp wood. The dock stretched endlessly, moonlight glinting on the water. Through the gaps between containers she saw them. Miguel stood surrounded by armed men, a cigarette glowing in his hand. He looked younger than she expected, calm, confident, like a man who believed he was untouchable. Then she heard it, the click of a safety being released. She turned and froze. A gun pressed against the back of her head. "Easy," the voice said. "Drop the weapon." She obeyed slowly, pulse hammering. The man behind her reached for his radio. "Got one of them, a woman." Before he could finish, Gabriel's voice crackled through her earpiece. "Now." The dock exploded into chaos. Gunfire erupted from both sides. Lauren ducked as bullets tore splinters from the crates. Gabriel's men moved like shadows, taking down targets with silent precision. Miguel ran toward the boat at the end of the pier, shouting orders in Spanish. Lauren sprinted after him, ignoring the pain in her knees as she hit the deck. Gabriel appeared from the smoke, limping slightly but unrelenting. He tackled Miguel near the edge of the pier, both men crashing against the railing. The gun skidded across the ground, sliding toward Lauren. She picked it up and aimed, her hands trembling. Gabriel had Miguel pinned, his forearm pressing into the traitor's throat. "You took everything," Gabriel said, voice shaking. "My people, my city, the woman I loved." Miguel's lips curled into a smirk. "You think killing me will bring her back?" Gabriel's jaw tightened. "No, but it'll stop her ghost from haunting me." Lauren's voice cut through the storm. "Gabriel, stop. If you kill him, it never ends." For a second she saw the conflict flash in his eyes, Rage, pain, love. Then he dropped his arm. Franco moved in and restrained Miguel. Lauren lowered the gun, her breath coming fast. Gabriel turned to her, rain dripping down his face. "You were right," he said quietly. "It ends here." They handed Miguel over to the authorities using the evidence Natalie had gathered. By dawn, news broke across every channel. Castrati's empire dismantled, corrupt officials arrested, and the Donatelli name erased from the criminal underworld. Later that morning, Gabriel and Lauren stood at the edge of the same lake where it had all begun. The sun rose pale and soft over the horizon. Gabriel's coat fluttered in the wind. "It's done," he said. She looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. "No, it's just beginning." He turned to her slowly, something gentle breaking through the years of darkness. For once, he didn't look like a man built from power and vengeance. He looked human. The waves rolled against the shore as if the lake itself exhaled. For the first time in a long time, there was silence that didn't mean danger. It meant peace, and Lauren finally let herself believe they might survive it. Morning light broke over the lake like a slow confession. The city was quiet after the storm that had torn through its underworld. For the first time, no sirens, no whispers of gunfire, no shadows moving where they shouldn't. But peace always came with a price, and Lauren felt it in every breath she took. She stood by the window of the new safe house, the sound of waves against the dock soft and steady, as if the world was trying to lull her into forgetting. Behind her, Gabriel sat in silence, his injured arm resting on the table. Papers, maps, and burnt photographs of Victor's empire lay scattered across it. The war was over, but the ruins it left behind were his to face. Franco had gone to dismantle the last of the operations under their control. The Donatelli name no longer inspired fear. It inspired questions. "You're free now," Lauren said quietly. Gabriel didn't look up. "No one like me is ever free." She turned to face him. "You've done everything you could. You burned it all down to stop it from spreading. You could start over?" He finally met her gaze. "Start over with what? Blood doesn't wash off just because the fire's out." She stepped closer. "Then start with what's left of you." He let out a low, humorless laugh. "What's left of me is dangerous." A soft knock at the door interrupted them. Franco stepped in, his usual calm replaced with something that looked like unease. "There's something you both need to see." He handed Gabriel an envelope. No name, no return address. It was dropped at the front gate this morning. Gabriel opened it slowly. Inside was a single photograph and a note written in black ink. The photo showed a small girl, no older than 5, playing in a garden under bright sunlight. The handwriting on the note was careful, familiar. "If you want the truth about Natalie, come to the bridge tonight." Midnight. Lauren froze. "That's her handwriting," she whispered. Gabriel studied the note, the paper trembling between his fingers. "It's impossible. She's dead," Franco shook his head. "Someone wants you to believe otherwise." Hours later, the city seemed to hold its breath again. The bridge where Natalie had taken her last photograph stretched across the dark river, the same bridge Lauren had avoided since the funeral. Fog rolled over the water, swallowing the light from passing cars. Gabriel waited near the center, his coat whipping in the wind. Lauren stood beside him, heart pounding in her throat. "You think it's a trap?" she asked. "It doesn't matter," he said. "If there's even a chance it's real, I have to know." A figure appeared through the mist, a woman, slim, moving slowly, face hidden beneath the hood of a gray coat. Gabriel's hand went to his gun, but something in the woman's stride made Lauren's knees go weak. The woman stopped a few feet away and lifted her hood. It wasn't Natalie. But the resemblance was haunting. "Her name is Alara," the woman said softly. Her voice carried over the water like a whisper. "I was Natalie's handler. She worked for us before she died." Gabriel's eyes narrowed. "Handler. Your government." The woman nodded. "Natalie was helping us bring down Victor's operation from the inside, but someone in our unit betrayed her. By the time we found out, it was too late." Lauren's chest tightened. "Why didn't you come forward before?" Alara looked at her with quiet sadness. "Because the traitor is still out there, and he knows about you now." Gabriel stepped closer. "Then why the photo?" The child Alara met his gaze. "Because she's yours." The world tilted. Lauren's breath caught, the sound of the river fading into nothing. Gabriel froze, disbelief etched into every line of his face. "That's not possible," he said. "Natalie never—" Alara shook her head. "She kept her pregnancy secret. She didn't want the child to grow up in your world. We helped her disappear before Victor found out. After she died, we kept the girl hidden. But someone found her location last week." Lauren's voice trembled. "What are you saying?" Alara's eyes flicked toward the shadows behind them. "That she's in danger, and if you want to save her, you'll have to finish what Natalie started." A distant gunshot shattered the air. Alara fell before anyone could react, the bullet catching her shoulder. Gabriel pulled Lauren down behind the railing as another shot hit the bridge. Franco's voice crackled over the radio. "We've got shooters on both ends. Move now." They ran through the fog, bullets sparking off steel, footsteps echoing across the wet pavement. Gabriel returned fire, his movements precise even through pain. Lauren covered him, her body trembling but steady. By the time they reached the car, the fog had swallowed their attackers. As Franco sped away, Lauren looked at Gabriel. His face was pale, his jaw set like stone. "If what she said is true," Lauren whispered, "that girl could still be alive." Gabriel stared out the window at the dark water. "Then we find her," he said. "Whatever it takes." The car disappeared into the night, the bridge shrinking behind them until it was nothing but mist and memory. Somewhere across the city, a child with Natalie's eyes played under an unfamiliar sky, unaware of the war her parents had fought to protect her. And as dawn crept over the lake once more, Gabriel Donatelli and Lauren Cooper stepped into a new war, one not for vengeance or redemption, but for a future neither had dared to imagine, because some ghosts don't haunt to punish. They haunt to guide the living back to what still matters. Love, blood, and the promise